Monday to Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m.
(104 to 107) nationwide. On the meeting point, we deliberately make a point of focusing on the unfinished business of the TRC. We have previously and on numerous occasions spoken to the story of Ahmed Timol, also of the Krugersdorp 4, and this time around our focus is on the latest surrounding the COSAS 4. This is a story that goes back to February in 1982, where the apartheid security branch lured 4 youth activists to a pump house near Krugersdorp under the false promise of receiving military training. They planted and detonated an explosive device which killed Eustace Bimbo Matigizela, Peter Nchingo Matabane, Fanyana Ndlapo, and left Zandile Musi severely injured. The apartheid government initially claimed the deaths resulted from an accidental explosion during training, but we know, at least going back to the TRC, that the attack was premeditated. It was a premeditated assassination. And as we've seen with the Krugersdorp 4 and many others, those who applied for amnesty were refused. And yet, no prosecution followed for over 3 decades. And after years of delays, this matter is now finally going to court. And we are, of course, going to continue to focus on this particular issue around the unfinished business of the TRC. And joining us now on the line, the lead attorney from the Legal Resources Center, Moray Hathorn, joining us now on the line. Moray, thank you very much for your time. Good evening.
Good evening, Koketsu. Thank you for having me.
Loud and clear,
Oh,
Moray. It's a tragic story that I find myself, whether we're talking to the Krugersdorp 4 family or even, previously having spoken to the families of Ahmed Timol and others, of how we continue to sit with these cases that were meant to be prosecuted post the TRC, and then again, as seen with the Krugersdorp 4, the undue delays on these matters. With the COSAS 4 in particular, what has been the contributing factors to the delays in this matter finally just finding its conclusion in the courts?
Well, okay, so I think it begins, of course, with the political interference which occurred in these cases. Back around 2007, in fact, on their affidavits, the NDPP Picoli was stopped, and his assistant advocate Ackerman was stopped work. They were forced to stop work on these cases. So obviously the preparation of the cases which should have been going on by then, the matters having been referred by the TRC to the prosecuting authority in 2002. By 2007, the investigations and prosecution should have been underway, but they were stopped. And that is where it all begins. I think that's common cause. And so the NPA did make a decision to start working on the matters in 2015 after Tembi Nkadimeng, now the current Minister of Human Settlements, had brought an application to compel the NPA to either hold an inquest or to prosecute the people who are alleged to have killed her sister, Nokutula. So from that point onwards, there has been a move to hold inquests and or trials in these matters, in a few of them, because only very few of them really are in a prosecutable state, having regard. In most of them, it seems witnesses have died, and indeed complainants, family members who are the contemporaries of people who were killed by the apartheid security forces, people who died in detention. Yeah.
When it comes to this particular matter of the COSAS for Moray, I mean, we know with, for example, the Craddock 4, those who could have been and should have been prosecuted ended up dying before going to court. In this particular case, we know of your Jan Kutsia, Christian Rohik. Are any of them still alive? And in terms of the case, are they on trial?
Well, only 2 of them are alive. That's Mfala Pizza, and Rurik. Rurik was the bomb expert who set the bombs in the pump house. Mfala Pizza was the man who lured them there, as you know. And he was an Askari. He had been a senior member of the ANC in exile in Lusaka, had returned to South Africa, and he lived in the Kagiso area, so he was known to these young men, to the COSAS 4, and they tried to enlist his help in joining MK. And he then reported this to his superiors at Vlakplaas, who set in motion the plot to kill these young men.
There's also in all of this the hands of the infamous Joe Mamasela Moray. What was his role?
Joe Mamasela was responsible for driving them there, for driving the youngsters there to the pump house. That my understanding is that was his role.
Yeah. So in terms of the current case, there's Klomedu Mfalapita as well as Christian Sibet Rohik who are on trial. What does it look like? When has it kicked off? When does it kick off? And what should we be expecting?
Well, they were charged in August of 2021, and we're still, in fact, waiting for the trial to really get underway. At this point, so the matter was set down for trial on the 14th of May 2003. And, literally days before that, the trial was to start. An application, in front of Peter, set down an application which he had commenced for hearing, in which he challenged the decision of the Amnesty Committee of the TRC not to grant an amnesty 22 years before. So that, of course, led to an immediate delay. The matter was then heard before the end of 2003, and he failed in that endeavor. Or perhaps it was 2004. It was 2004. He failed in that endeavor. Also, just ahead of literally at the last minute before the trial was to start on the 14th of May last year, 2004, Rurik also brought an application to challenge the validity or the justiceability of the international criminal charges, that is, apartheid is a crime against humanity and murder is a crime against humanity. That he brought the application under section to challenge the charges at the last minute. So there was this gap. They were charged in August of 2001. But only in May of 2004 were these fundamental challenges brought. Yeah. So there was this, that's one of the question marks, is the gap. These things should have been done earlier, although there was a dispute about whether their legal fees would be paid or not. So, yeah. So in fact, we're still far away from the trial because one of the issues, which was raised by Rurik, that is the validity of the charges or their justifiability in a South African court, are now on appeal. They lost that case in the High Court in the criminal trial before the criminal trial judge. They lost it, but they've taken it on appeal, and they've been granted leave to appeal. So it looks that we will only get a hearing in the Supreme Court of Appeal on the question of the justiciability of the charges,
right,
probably towards in the second term of next year, which is sometime after May, in the period May or June, perhaps early July. We're likely to get a hearing in the Supreme Court of Appeal, so that we're still a long way from the trial.
Moray, of course, we're in conversation with Moray Hathorn, lead attorney from the Legal Resources Center. A part of me, while noting all that you said, once again left with sadness, because I started with this excitement in part, thinking that there actually is movement, and you've almost dulled my anticipation and bringing me back to reality to say, no, actually,
yes, I'm afraid I have.
No, you have, and successfully so, Moray.
Yeah.
And again, it's a reminder of what I remember the words of Lukan Kalata of the Fort Kalata Foundation when speaking of the continuous delayed and the justice denied and justice deferred, speaking of how it seems, or at least on his part, speaking of it having been a very deliberate move to delay until any of these individuals who could have stood trial, die or something happens to them. And in this case, we're possibly, and one hopes not, that there are people who are still alive who should be on trial, and these delays just do not bode well for justice.
No, they don't. If Advocate Piccoli, who was then National Director of Public Prosecutions, had been allowed to do his work, which he was set on doing, as I've said, we might be looking at a very different outcome now to the situation that we in fact are facing.
Yeah. We'll keep in touch with yourself, and as the story progresses, Moray, and hopefully we will bring some finality to this and bring justice to the families who have been affected. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
There will be a measure of justice anyway. Yes, thank you.
Most definitely. Moray Hathorn, the lead attorney from the Legal Resources Center, will continue to seek justice for the Madikela, Matabane, and Tlapo and the Musi families. This is the Meeting Point on SAFM 20.